Hi, this is Musa. This is Sergei Karjakin's last chance to equalize the match and keep going for tie breaks after losing the first two games, blundering the third one, but luckily Svidler counter-blundered and gave him the third game. So if he make this and win the game with the white pieces, it would be a miracle. However, he starts now with knight f3, and we have cross variation after c takes d4 and c takes d5. Queens are exchanged early in the game, and knight c3 and bishop to d7. Now after the exchanges, there is one idea for black after knight d b5, and that is to play the knight to a6. After white plays e4, black will stop him with e5. Bishop g5 attacks the knight, and maybe bishop to c5, going back to b6, controlling this diagonal, c7 included. However, the other choice would be king to d8, and now bishop to e3. Knight c6 defends that threat. f3, bishop maybe will go to f2. Now h5. The idea behind this is that black wants to play g6, defend the knight, have the h6 diagonal, h6 to c1 controlled in case the bishop moves, and maybe the rook after playing h4 will control the h file, or have some window playing in the game from the h file. In the meantime, white triple zeroed, castled queenside, and king to c8. Bishop attacks the knight, and now Svidler is faced with tough choices, whether he plays e6, e5, do something else such as rook to b8, or pretty much plays g6, preparing bishop g7 to defend the knight. However, white has a cute move, and that is knight to d6 check, attacking f7. The only defender of the knight is now gone and will become a huge weakness in black's camp. Bishop takes with attack, rook moves, and e4 simply. Black maybe should have played a6. However, he preferred to play bishop to e6, and now king to b1. King d7. The idea for white is that he can play e5 immediately, or reverse the bishop to h4, go to g3, or even f2, back to c5, attack the pawn, play e5, and of course the pawn is pinned. Black will have difficulty, but he would dream of playing b6, controlling c5, or even a6 to move the rook freely, and maybe the knight. However, white also has this idea, knight d5, which was played in the game, and taking the knight is simply not good for grandmaster level. Svidler played bishop to g7. Let's see, bishop takes knight, rook takes bishop, bishop g7, bishop g5, rook controls the c file, and bishop to b5. a6, bishop a4, b5, bishop b3, and maybe knight to a5 still attacks the bishop. Double rooks, and rook c6 defending, bishop to f4 attacking, bishop to f8 defending, and maybe bishop to c2 now. Bishop e7, nothing really for black to do, only shuffle, and e5. Knight c4 defends, and bishop to e4. Maybe g5 now from black, bishop c1, king c7, f4, gf4, and check with the pawn. After bishop takes, rook to f5, and white still wins the 2 pawns, or the 1 pawn that he initially wanted. However, let's go back to the game. This is the game. Bishop g7, bishops are exchanged, rook takes, bishop b5, and king to d8, out of the pin. Rook d2, bishop takes knight now, and rook takes. King c7, back to defend the weakness, and double rooks is also a good move, but rook c1 was also pinning the knight, and white will use that pin and pressure to win the pawn on d6. However, rook to e8 now, preparing rook to e5, and maybe white should have played bishop to a4 and played b5 to attack the knight, the pinned knight. But rook to d4 is also good, and now rook to e5 attacking the bishop. Bishop goes back, and b5 now without a6. Bishop b3, rook c5, and now rook d5. The idea behind that is that the knight is pinned, and with the bishop, of course, if rook takes d5, then bishop takes and the knight is cooked. The other move is that the pawn on b5 is also attacked. So rook takes with check, king takes, and a6 to defend the pawn. Rook d3, and now g5. Maybe black should have played f5, and if pawn takes, then pawn takes, and black also has attack on g2. So g5 here does nothing, it only allows king to be centralized, h4, and rook to c3, pinning the knight again, preparing bishop to d5, and king to b6 now, out of the pin. Rook d3, Svidler tries to make a repetition, but white king gets centralized even more. f6 now, slow moves from black, he has really no good moves. Rook c3, king b6, rook d3, king c7. Karjakin doesn't want that repetition, of course. After king to b6, now bishop to d5, knight e7, and king to d4, rook h7, bishop to a6, e6 to prevent h3, open the h file or the g file. So rook to h8 now, a3, waiting move, rook d8, and rook to c2, rook back to h8, rook f2, maybe preparing f4. With the help of the bishop it will be possible. The black pawn on g5 cannot go forward to g4. So now knight to g6 and king to d5, attacking the pawn. So rook back must be back, bishop to f5 attack the knight, knight to f4 check, only move, and this is black's last chance to play d5. Get rid of the weakness and maybe equalize, go home with a draw and win the World Cup. However, after rook to e8, now Karjakin spots an advantage, and that is g3. Maybe forcing the knight to go to h5, then g7, then maybe control e6. However, Svidler wanted to go back with the knight, but after bishop takes, rook takes, and king to d5, see the king is not on c7 anymore, or even d7, far away from defending the weakness. Now after the check, black has lost the pawn. H takes g3, h takes g3, and g4, of course forcing white to take, and rook to f4, and white is clearly winning. Rook e3, rook takes f6, rook takes g3, king moves to e5 with discover check, king b7, and king to f5, defending the pawn. Rook b3, and there is another mistake. This is of course allowing the pawn to march, and again another mistake. There is rook takes b2, just hopelessly trying to equalize or do something. The pawn keeps marching, rook g2, but after king, even before king goes to e6, Svidler realized that he is completely lost and resigned. I hope you enjoyed this video, and we will be back with the tie breaks. Bye for now.